I'd spent 10 years working for Marks and Spencer's in the UK. I'd not been to the best school, best university. I'm the son of immigrants. My parents left Gambia, where I was born, in the 60s to get to London. But I'm at Marks and Spencer's. My mum's really proud. She can tell all her friends now, he's at Marks and Spencer's. The phone rang. I'd done 10 years, 9 different roles. I wasn't the best at what I did. I didn't have the best degree. I wasn't the best qualified, but I'm at Marks and Spencer. It's Pepsi. They're looking for a board director to be based out of Purchase, New York. I just knew they'd come to the wrong person. But I was going to bluff this. I was going to learn everything I possibly could about this process. So if it happened again, I'd get it. Before I knew it, I'd got through all these selection processes, the assessment centers, the development centers, the role plays, the psychometrics. My first day of work, I'm in the boardroom at Pepsi. In those dark days, there were 7 of us on the board. All male, 6 Americans, and me. In walked the chief executive, Larry Cates. It was April 1992 BG, before Google. And that's important to this. Larry came in and said, gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our new board director, René Carayol. Let me tell you a little bit about René. He had no notes. He had no Google. René's parents came to the UK in the early 60s. No notes, no Google. I had no idea how he found that out. He talked through the infant school I went to, the primary school, the high school, my university, my degree. No notes, no Google. Guess how I'm feeling? He then talked through my 9 different roles at Marks and Spencer's over 10 years, in chronological order. No notes, no Google. As I'm talking to you now, I can just feel Larry, Larry, Larry. This was my first time, after 10 years at Marks and Spencer's, the first time I was meeting a real leader. Marks and Spencer's, fantastic at management, knew nothing about leadership. Pepsi knew everything about leadership, knew nothing about management. I was in a very special place. Larry was the first leader I'd met. I don't know how he got the information. I don't know how long he spent understanding, rehearsing, preparing. It could not have lasted more than 3 minutes. But to this day, many, many years later, when I talk about Larry, guess how I feel? And if Larry was to call now and say, René, if you just jump out of that window for me, I would jump out of the window. Ladies and gentlemen, this is inspirational leadership. Africa's biggest challenge. So, my next book is coming out. It's called Spike. My first meeting with Larry at Pepsi, the first thing he said to me, hey René, what's your spike? Pardon? What are you great at? I'm British. I couldn't possibly answer that. I was later to realize that everyone has a standout strength. I listened in awe at Nikki as Nikki spoke. And my book is Joining Nikki in the Strength-Based Revolution. Everybody in this auditorium has a standout strength. But in Western developed societies, we have become obsessed with people's limitations. And you know, one of my first ever appraisals, I've been appraised, the performance appraisal. My first ever appraisal, 3 strengths, 120 weaknesses. That was in the 80s. In the 90s, they weren't weaknesses anymore, they were areas for development. In the noughties, they were areas for improvement. And today, they are limitations. We need to change this, especially in Africa. Who wants to work for the pessimist? Optimism is a force multiplier. Everyone has a standout strength. The Americans have coined a phrase for the times we live in today, they call it VUCA. There was a time when a good enough management team, a good enough strategy, a good enough brand, a good enough culture was good enough. Since 2007, that is no longer good enough. We live in a world that's now volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Management alone won't get you there. And it's all too complex and fast-moving, and market's too unforgiving for one leader to do it on their own anymore. And I've been privileged enough to work with some of the best leaders on the planet. I've yet to work with one that's an all-rounder. I've yet to work with one that's flawless. But when I look at the best of the best, they're good at 2 or 3 things only. But they've honed them to near Olympian standard. And the real trick is then choose a team around you who compensate for your weaknesses. Everybody has a strength. Let's forget the limitations and focus on the strengths. You can't believe the self-inflicted injury of Brexit. Distinct paucity and lack of political leadership. Right across the world. And I lecture at Cass Business School, visiting professor there. None of our star students want to be politicians anymore. Nowhere around the world do the best of the best want to be politicians. We have some work to do. If we can remove this unhealthy obsession with everyone's limitations, we change the world for the better instantly. I'm doing a talk at the Helix Centre in Dublin. It's for AHEAD. They're a confederation of disability charities. Very much like today, I'm the last speaker before lunch. The auditorium's really dark. When you're on public speaking like I'm doing with you now, you need to engage all of the auditorium. And a trick I learned very early on is find those people who are giving you affirmation. One in the middle, one at the right, one at the left. Someone who's smiling with you, someone who's laughing at your bad jokes, someone who's giving you acknowledgements all the time. And on this particular day, there's a woman sitting right in front of me. And there's a small shaft of light that's shining onto her. And it's so much easier to listen to a face that's smiling than a face that's frowning. And the truth is, the audience will reflect you. If you're scowling, the audience scowls. If you're smiling, the audience smiles. So I found my person on the left, my person on the right, and this fabulous woman in front of me. And she's smiling at me, she's laughing at my jokes, she's really engaged. As I'm revving up to some speed, the door opens to the right of me, in walks a woman with a guide dog, but the guide dog doesn't lead her to her seat, leads her to the edge of the stage. She sits down quietly. I continue talking. After a few minutes, the dog at her feet growls a little. My fabulous lady in front of me who's smiling at me, all of a sudden, a dog at her feet growls back. I realize instantaneously, she's blind. Wow. How is she acknowledging me? How is she exchanging with me? I get to the end of my talk. We're leaving for a buffet lunch outside. She stands up, she puts her hand like this, her arm like this. I do as I'm told. I get up, I lock my arm inside, she holds it quite securely, and we walk over for lunch. It's a buffet lunch. I pick up a tray, I give her a tray. And I do what we all do. I made some assumptions. Because what did I see first? And I say, would you like the salmon? Would you like the broccoli? No. And she chose everything she wanted. Her sense of smell was astounding. Wrong assumptions. What did I see first? What do we always see first? The limitations. The limitations. We had a fantastic conversation over lunch. She shared with me all the things she's doing. She'd come from Cork, a city, 3 hours train ride from Dublin. She said, I got the train myself. I came up here. I'll be getting the train back home. And I'm thinking, wow. Remove my assumptions. Embrace the reality. There are no limitations. Let's focus on the strengths. We shook hands, hugged, and I'm off to get my taxi to go to the airport. She's off to get her train. By habit, as I get to the taxi, I turn around and I wave. She instantly waves back. What do we see first? Let's stop seeing the limitations and look for those strengths. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all make our own decisions, write our own stories? Everyone in this room is unique, special, and different. Every talk we have to give is unique, special, and different. The worst thing we can have in the world is we're the team leader, we're the chief executive. You don't need 10 Renés. Value that difference. I don't know if you recognize this lady, but in our British Bake Off series, this was Nadia. Now I just want to play you a little short clip of Nadia. She's fabulous.
The winner of the 2015 Great British Bake Off is...
I am never ever going to put boundaries on myself ever again. I'm never going to say I can't do it. I'm never going to say maybe. I'm never going to say I don't think I can. I can, and I will.
I'm not sure we saw someone who was going to win the British Bake Off when she first stepped onto our screens. Let's hold back our prejudice. Let's hold back our implicit bias. Let's not see the limitation. Let's see the power of those strengths. Johnny goes to school for the first time at the age of 4 years old. It's the first parent-teachers meeting. Proud mum and dad come down. Teacher says, Johnny's not so good at spelling. We're going to give him 4 extra spelling classes. How different would the world be if it was Johnny's fantastic arithmetic? We're going to give him 4 extra arithmetic classes. We changed the game totally. Totally. The virtuous spike circle. The things I tend to do well are the things I tend to enjoy. The things I tend to enjoy are the things I tend to do well. You want to go the extra mile? Come into work every single day doing the things you're fantastic at. What a wonderful world that might be. It's no longer possible for the team leader, the chief executive, to be so broad they can answer everything. It's completely understandable and acceptable for the team to be broad. When it comes to management, one size fits everyone. When it comes to leadership, one size fits no one. Let's value that difference. Everyone in this room can be a leader if they want to be. It's not like management. We teach management at our business school in London. Leadership's an attitude. Once you've made that decision, no one can take it away from you. It's like education. And by the time you finish a session, my session with the organization, I can guarantee you there will be more leaders. The perennial question I get asked, are leaders born or are leaders made? I disagree with both. Leaders are found. Good leaders create followers. Great leaders create leaders. The challenge we have for Africa is to create more leaders. Our confusion between leadership and management, we need to break. We keep thinking that management is leadership when it isn't. 10 years ago when I started traveling in 1999, my first trip to South Africa, I never thought I'd have the chance to work in the land of my forefathers. Since 1999 till today, the misconceptions. Number one, we think the leaders are at the top of the organization. They're not. The best leaders are all over the organization. The pump attendant, the till operator, the cashier. As we've seen with Google, Goldman Sachs, the business with the most leaders wins, period. And the leadership I'm talking about, to make it clear to all of you, think mothers at home. The most fantastic leaders never went to business school, haven't got an MBA. The primary role models, running tight budgets, giving feedback, understanding that every one of their charges needs a slightly different stroke. Knowing when there needs to be boundaries, knowing when there needs to be a bit of motivation, knowing when there needs to be some bit of telling off. Everyone in this room can be a leader if they want to be. I'll close off with a little story. Leaders tell stories, managers talk strategy. 3 men working on a building site in the burning sun. They're breaking rocks, they're dripping with sweat. The journalist comes up to the first one and says, "Why are you doing this job?" "I haven't worked for 3 years, I took the first job that I could get." Goes to the second one, "Why do you do this job?" "I've got a wife and 3 kids, I need to be in work." Goes to the final one, "Why do you do this job?" "I'm helping to build a cathedral." The role of the leader is to ensure that everyone in the organization is, number one, exercising their strengths every day, capitalizing upon their strengths every day. Number 2, they're given someone to believe in and something to belong to, the cathedral. Thank you very much for listening to me today.